Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. We're very excited to get started on fleet management and driving safety. But first, I'd like to introduce our speakers. So we have Miranda Fernandez, who is a safety and risk advisor here at LeBaron and Carroll. And many of you have gotten to know her through a safety consultation or even been OSHA and first aid certified by her. And then we have Kathleen Babylon from Amerisure Insurance, who is not only a great storyteller, but also an amazing risk management specialist. She's going to go ahead and start us off today with the fleet management portion.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to be talking about the 7 essentials of fleet safety. But first, I want to start with a really sad fact. Auto claims are really hurting the insurance industry countrywide. But more upsetting for you out there, these claims are also hurting individual businesses and ultimately affecting the bottom line. We want to provide you with an insight on our perspective on how we feel we can work together to mitigate our exposure as it relates to auto claims, and what essential programs your business can implement to help reduce losses and reduce claims exposure. So our goal at the end of this training is for you to feel more comfortable and more knowledgeable about the root causes of accidents. And we want to take that information and begin a more proactive approach to controlling your losses. We're going to discuss several real auto claims, which we feel will better provide a visual to become more in tune at recognizing exposures before they turn into losses. So first, let's review our objectives today. All right. In today's webinar, we're going to discuss industry trends and loss generators. Our main focus will be the 7 elements you see on the screen of fleet safety. And we're going to discuss how focusing on these 7 elements will help you improve your fleet program. It will assist you with the necessary steps on creating a robust fleet safety program. And at the end of today, we hope you can understand the importance of proper fleet safety. So let's get into this. All right, how many of you are aware that auto accidents are on the rise? And I don't expect you to actually answer. By the way, if you do have questions that pop up, feel free to put them into the chat. We're going to talk about anything you put into the chat at the end of the webinar. So, all right, first, as the economy improves and businesses expand, there are way more vehicles on the road covering more miles. And since COVID is hopefully in the past, there's a lot more people driving into work now. So this increases the frequency of auto accidents and results in more insurance claims, and they are absolutely affecting companies like yours. Secondly, cell phones. How many of you today actually saw people on the cell phone on their way to work this morning? And I know some of you are service industries. Your guys probably see folks on their cell phone all day long. Cell phones continue to draw drivers away from the road. Their attention is just gone. And it's not just texting anymore. Now social media is just constantly in the work. But the biggest reason that we are seeing claims, and I hear, yes, the auto accidents are 432 billion, but here's the real deal. Lawyers. We've all seen the ads on television, on the internet, on the billboards. Here's a fact. The United States has the highest density of attorneys per capita in the world. We have more lawyers than anybody. The way you run your fleet program directly impacts the amount of money that go to these types of people, but to lawyers. So I'm going to hit this here. We've seen these terrible, terrible claims. I won't go into significant detail, but suffice it to say, I can tell you about a claim we had in which we did hit the employee did hit somebody. The person walked away with minimal damage to their vehicle, had some chiropractic treatment, no head injury, nothing like that. They walked away from the accident fine. And it was about a $35,000, $40,000 claim. That includes the damage to our vehicle. And we got served papers about a year later, and the claim was upwards of $1.3 million. Now, here's the thing. When we see a claim like that, where we're absolutely guilty, our employee did hit that person, we're very leery about going to court in front of a jury. And here's why. There's something called the reptilian brain theory. And essentially, lawyers are not necessarily using facts and figures to fight a claim. They're eliciting emotion. They're trying to incite anger in a jury. And it's what ifs. What if that had been your daughter in the car? What if that had been your mother in the car? What have you? And we can't go in and chance 1.3 million becoming $2 million. So we have to say, will you settle? And in this case, we settled the only way we could settle, $600,000. So what was a $35,000, $40,000 claim became $600,000. And that's not a singular event. I can actually go back and cite just my insureds. I could cite probably 7 claims like that in the last 3 years. So this is one of the biggest reasons why everyone here attending has to be 100% involved in fleet safety in every aspect. And we're going to touch every aspect, I promise. So let's describe here. Hold on. I'm going to talk to you about, I'm so sorry. I'm having to operate 2 screens here, so I apologize. What are our objectives when we're looking at fleet management? So first, we want to define the elements of effective fleet management. We're going to discuss the 7 essential programs. We're going to review some cases that I told you earlier. They're going to be really, they're going to really show a picture of why we have to be so attentive. We're going to review some of the fleet safety and fleet management benefits of telematics. We won't dive too deep into that, but we really just want to tell you the good and the bad of it. And we're also going to tell you what resources are offered by LeBaron and Carroll. Miranda's going to touch on that at the very end. So hold on to the end because it's pretty fantastic what you have available to you. So what are the 7 essentials of fleet management? Well, you see, well, let me get them up there. I'm just going to go ahead and put them all up on the screen so you can read through them while I talk. The first element is appropriate policy and procedure. And that means every single driver. These procedures have to apply to all drivers. And when I say all drivers, that means the non-owned. What is a non-owned driver? That's a person who drives their personal vehicle for work purposes, not going from home to office and back home. It's going home, office, job site, another job site, another job site, or home, office, going to the bank, going to run errands. Those folks will become your problem if they get into an accident. So we're going to talk about that in a bit. Management commitment. This is one of the most important aspects of fleet safety. You're here on this webinar, and essentially, I suspect most of you are in some kind of leadership position. Your commitment to safety in the fleet safety is absolutely essential. And the fact that you're on here listening to us is amazing. And it tells us that you actually do take fleet safety really carefully. Screening and selecting qualified drivers. We're going to talk on that. Effective ongoing driver training. Miranda's going to speak to that. And it's so, so important. And she's going to talk about documentation. Sorry to steal your thunder there, Miranda. Then we're going to talk about driver accountability, managing accidents when they actually occur, and then lastly, formal fleet maintenance. But first, let's talk about this first element.
Yeah, so appropriate policies and procedures that are applicable to all drivers is essential. The MVR program is the foundation of your fleet safety program and the basis for reducing liability claims. Failure to implement a formal MVR program can have catastrophic potential for your company. This is one of the largest issues in the industry due to lack of formal MVR programs. So if you have a good program, it can help you. And if you don't, it can hang you. So published standards provide a comparison for MVRs reviewed for each driver and reports if an employee has an acceptable driving history. So you want to check out people before you hire them, like at the hiring process. You need to be seeing what is their motor vehicle record. MVR should be run on all employees at least annually as well. So at hiring and then annually or more. We'll get into that. So by running MVRs on your employees, it provides an acceptable disciplinary action if the MVR performance falls outside of acceptable standards. An employee with a failed MVR should be removed from driving on behalf of the business, even if they're using a personal vehicle for work purposes. It's still your liability as a company. So regarding non-owned vehicles used for work, so that the employee uses their own vehicle for company use, your business is being exposed. You are liable. So these MVR policies are designed to protect your business from third-party liability and possibly from your own employees. So, side note, LeBaron and Carroll is one of the few agencies in the country that will actually run your MVRs for you annually. But it's recommended that you also do it internally midway through your policy period. So you know what's going on with your employees and your drivers, and you're aware of violations and dangerous actions that's happening in your vehicles that you're liable for. It's also important, go ahead. So other appropriate policies and procedures. So these are minimum of what you want to have for your policies and procedures. Vehicle use refers to what is acceptable use of company vehicles. What does your policy state? Can your company vehicles go home at night with your employees? Is personal use allowed? Are other people allowed to ride with them, family members? All of this needs to be addressed in writing and reviewed routinely so your employees know what's expected of them and you make it very clear. And this needs to be addressed routinely, remind them of the policies. Policies must state that employees must comply with basic laws, also including seatbelt use, cell phone. Be clear on what is acceptable and what is not. A standard drug and alcohol policy is also a requirement, should be part of your written policies and procedures. And having a standard protocol for accident reporting and investigation. All of these should be part of your written policies and is helpful when accidents do occur, so everybody knows this is what we do when it happens. Lastly, you should have a written standard that states the acceptable current limits for vehicles that the employees do not own that are used for work purposes. So your employees own a vehicle, they use it for work, there needs to be minimum amounts of insurance required of them, and they should provide proof of that insurance and list the policyholder as an additional insured if possible. So make sure that they have that your employees have that if they're using their own vehicle for company use. So moving on, we're going to look at this accident, see what caused it, what could have prevented it. You can see that this large box truck rear-ended the stopped school bus that was stopped at the stoplight. This box truck was traveling at least 60 miles per hour. And when it hit the school bus into the intersection, 78 feet, it pushed the school bus. How does this happen? Well, upon investigating this multi-vehicle accident, it was found these were the factors: distracted driving and cell phone use. The black box revealed the box truck was traveling 60 miles per hour in a 45 mile per hour zone. And the driver tested positive for methamphetamines in the post-accident drug screen. So very dangerous driver. And it's interesting that there were warning signs about this driver. So this is a company letter regarding the driver in the prior slide, driving the box truck. And if you'll notice, the date of the accident was January 21st. This letter was sent the day before the accident occurred. So it went from the company fleet manager to the human resources contact. And the title in all bold in capital letters says violation of company vehicle policy. So evidently it was a very urgent email and there was great concern over this driver. It starts off by saying, I believe you're making the wrong decision in keeping this driver on the payroll as a driver. He indicates he has verbally reprimanded this behavior, and yet his behavior continues even with written warning, telling him his job is in jeopardy, and his disregard of this behavior indicates a risk we or you, the company, is accepting. Then the last sentence is crucial in all caps again, says, he needs to be removed from the driver duties immediately. And then tells the HR person the risk to safety and property is too great. So what is your company policy? Do you have a plan in place to take action quickly and swiftly if you were to receive this kind of an email about one of your employees and drivers? Because it takes only one driver and one accident to put you and your livelihood and companies at great risk. So what was the outcome of this accident? Well, it affected so many things. The incident was terrible. Adults and children were severely injured. The parents of the children had to receive that phone call that their child was involved in a very major accident on their way to school. The school bus driver, can you imagine the trauma that school bus driver experienced? Not to mention the driver of that box truck, his family, and of course the employer. And so the best policies on the supported by your company leadership. So let's talk a little bit more about management commitment.
Right. Management commitment. Woohoo. Well, management commitment is the reason. Yeah, okay. I wasn't sure if I was still muted. That's the thing I'm going to keep doing, is forgetting to unmute myself. Management commitment is the reason we're here today. Your commitment to these policies drive the successful implementation of the fleet management program. What you have in place determines how your employees perceive the company's policy. So what are some examples that demonstrate effective management commitment? Your programs and your policies regarding your fleet have to be updated every 5 years. You need to pull out your current fleet policy. If it hasn't been touched since 2010, I promise you need to update it. You need, as we said earlier, current employee MVRs on file. You need copies of counseled drivers, meaning if there's been any discipline following an accident, following a speeding ticket, following poor performance because their GPS indicates that, you need to keep a counseled driver counseled driver form on file. Hopefully you have a telematics program or a GPS program in place. Driver paid deductibles. That's always a tough pill to swallow, but when we're looking at an at-fault accident, so I drive a company vehicle. If I'm at fault, meaning I rear end somebody or I T-bone somebody, it's very clear I was at fault. I have to pay the deductible. Safety committee. If you have one, your safety committee needs to review fleet accidents just as much as they would look at a work comp accident. So fleet accidents honestly can have a far more impactful hit on your bottom line, more so than even a work comp claim. That's not in every case, trust me, but it can really hit you because you're looking at third parties. And I am going to turn this over to Miranda again. Hi, Miranda. And you are muted.
All right. So screening and selecting drivers carefully is very important to pick your qualified drivers. This can help create a reliable, safe team. Without safe drivers, no organization is likely to have a good long-term safety record. So leadership must establish clear hiring standards and a thorough screening process for anyone who drives on company business. Effective hiring protocols must be overseen by a person of authority and have management commitment to be effective. So this can't be something you leave to chance, like, well, I hope we get a good driver this time. It has to be a very proactive thing. Pre-hire MVRs and drug screening are critical. You hire your problems is an axiom in nearly every industry. Reference checks and criminal background checks are a very important part of hiring process because they reveal more than a simple MVR. Like, do they have a DUI on their record? So only a criminal background check may reveal the presence of this, and that would be really important information. Pre-hire physicals and DOT documentation for your DOT drivers is also very important. Driver validation, testing, and observation. That means you want a formal selection process that will help ensure that you hire the driver best suited to your company. So back to you, Kathy.
I did it. Thank you. Okay, we're going to talk about another accident that we had covered at AmeriSure. So this is going to illustrate the necessity of understanding why hiring and annual MVR checks are valuable, meaning you need to run it at hire and you need to run it the MVR annually. In this claim, the insured driver was U-turning out of a job site. So think of a construction job site you drive by and it's all fenced in except where the trucks are going in and out. This company truck was driving out of the job site to do a U-turn. And when they came, as they were in that process, they hit a rehabilitation transport bus. Now, if you're not aware what a rehabilitation transport bus is, this is a bus that is hauling folks to go to physical rehabilitation. Most of them are in wheelchairs or very physically injured in some way, maybe post-surgery, post-accident. But these are folks who are already injured and they're getting transported to go to rehabilitation. All right, with that in mind. Oh, and by the way, this is the transport truck that was hit by our vehicle. Okay, so what happened here? What are the facts regarding this accident? In this case, the employer, and if you were going to put yourself in the shoes in this accident, that's you, knowingly allowed an employee to drive on a suspended license with the stipulation the employee would only drive on the job site, meaning, oh gosh, Frank will never leave the job site and be on the road. He's only going to stay inside this fenced in job site. So it's not on the road driving. So it's totally fine. Unfortunately for everyone involved in this, the job site involved earthwork along a public roadway. This inevitably led to the employee driving on a public road. Post-accident drug testing showed that the person was positive for marijuana. The employee was let go because it's against company policy. If the company had pulled the driver's history and then held that employee accountable to those MVR standards, this accident would have been avoided. Going back, like the HR letter the day before, when we see a problem, we have to address it immediately. And as soon as we start making excuses for someone, oh, well, he had 2 speeding tickets, but he's a really reliable driver, so we're just going to let him continue driving. And then they get in the accident. Or in this case, the person leaves the job site just to do a U-turn. It's not okay. And here's the thing. Insurance exists because it'll never happen. Guess what? It always happens. And that's why Miranda and I have jobs, because guess what? It happens. In this case, he drove out of the job site and caused a major, major mess. What was the outcome on this accident? Well, there were some really, really severe injuries on that bus, including blindness due to a traumatic brain injury. One person in there had to have facial reconstruction surgery. There was a lot of broken bones. It was awful. It was absolutely awful. And the claim was drastically impacted because the company knowingly allowed this employee to drive. The allegations against this company of negligent supervision and hiring is a legitimate and valid allegation in this case. And now we're going to go to a really great phrase that Miranda and I hear way too often. And I'm going to get to that here. Here we go. Negligent entrustment. If I've ever been out to your business or Miranda has, this is a word that we use quite frequently. This is a term for knowingly allowing poor drivers access to your vehicles, and it's called negligent entrustment. Those 2 words can make a claim value escalate severely when the injured parties are seeking punitive damages. And for the record, your non-owned drivers, they need to be on your driver's list as well. You don't get charged by the driver, you get charged by the vehicle. So putting your non-owned drivers on your driver list is absolutely vital, because negligent entrustment can apply in this case too. As an employer, you have a responsibility to take reasonable steps to ensure that you're putting safe representatives of your organization on the road. This includes your company vehicles, as well as employees who are driving their own. on your behalf. If you are found liable for negligent entrustment, your business assets can be at risk because it may not be an insurable verdict. Your company could actually pay the price. This is obviously based on local laws and judicial decisions. So keep that in mind if you go, we're going to let this guy slide because I really need him to be a driver, or this gal. Just keep this in mind. All right, Miranda.
Yeah, so documentation of driver training is absolutely necessary. Without evidence that you've trained your employees, an employer may be charged with negligent entrustment or negligent conditions of work in the event of a claim. A formal policy and appropriate evidence that driver safety training is complete is the only way to defend against liability. You need to have initial driver hiring documents where you have gotten their MVR records, you've done safety training, all of the background checks. You need documents showing that you have done that. New employee orientation checklists on appropriate vehicles, equipment, and accessories is essential. And this absolutely includes formal training on attaching a trailer, tie downs, and actually driving with a trailer attached, and ongoing driver training on a variety of topics that address hazards of their driving. So there has to be formal training records. If you don't have record of the training happening, it's like it didn't happen. So you need documentation for all of your training, and driver training, especially when there's an accident, they want to know where they trained. So that's important to keep record of.
Preach it, Miranda. You're absolutely right. I'm going to just say it again. You got to document it. If you're going to do it, document it. It's pretty simple. So I'm 100% backing up Miranda on that one. All right. What we have here is a slide about distracted driving. We could talk about distracted driving for hours, but we won't because we know you have things to do today. But this slide illustrates there being three kinds of distractions. You've got visual, you've got manual, and you've got mental. When a driver is using their cell phone instead of driving, because honestly, that's what they're doing. Their car is driving. They're looking at their cell phone. They're involving all three of these distractions at one time, which drastically increases their chances of being in an accident. If your mind and eyes are not paying attention to the job of driving, your response time is going to be drastically reduced when you decide to look up. And now, so once you decide to look up, now you have to respond to the traffic or whatever's going on in front of you. Looking down and then looking up, you've already wasted valuable time in your response time. So if you're drivers, and again, I know some of the folks attending are service companies, your service guys really, really have to be trained not to pick up their cell phone while they're driving, even if they have Bluetooth. Even with Bluetooth, if there's any way not to pick up that phone while they're driving or to answer the phone, or make it a quick and concise call. Are you on your way to XYZ? Yes. Okay. Or no. Have them pull over to talk to you because that they're not paying attention. Even if they have the Bluetooth, it's still distracting them. They may be visually looking, but their mind is completely somewhere else. So I'm going to show you a video in this next clip. Hopefully everyone can hear it. This is an example of distracted driving. So I'm going to play this not all the way through because at the end it just gets into gotcha news, but I just want to show you this video.
New details tonight emerging from the video of a commercial truck.
My apologies, sorry.
Trucker driving off an overpass on I-75 because he was distracted by his cell phone. ABC Action News reporter Michael Paluska live tonight with more on the company. And Michael, I know that you just uncovered a history of citations for similar violations, right?
Wendy, after we went online, we did go and we saw that this company has actually been cited 9 times for drivers using their cell phones behind the wheels, driving these huge Mack trucks you see behind me. They've also been involved in a couple of fatality crashes in the past couple of years as well. Investigators say dash cam video from inside the cab and outside shows Samuel Colon moments before he drove off the Interstate 75 ramp and onto Fowler Avenue below. Looking at the pictures from last week's crash would make you think the driver of the heavy dump truck didn't survive, but Cologne did. Florida Highway Patrol investigators say he was a very lucky man. Hey, Mr. Cologne. Hey, I work with ABC Action.
And then it just goes on to, like I said, go holler at the guy. The reason why that man survived is because he was wearing a seatbelt. That's the only reason that man survived. And you can see in the video, he's not looking at his video for a minute. It's literally like this: down, up, down, up. And that's how quick accidents happen. I was on the interstate yesterday, and a guy was looking at his phone, and it just started coming right into my lane. And I had people on the other side of me. I had to honk the horn and get on the brakes because this person was going to collide into me. It happens so fast. It's insane how quick. So your cell phone policy has to be brutal almost. You can't let folks look at their phone, or like I said, if at all possible, not even answer the phone. All right. So driver accountability has to consist of documented discussions or actions when drivers are counseled or disciplined. And that's obviously for fleet safety violations. Documentation is crucial for any new hire training and a road test. So if you do a road test, you've got to document. If you're going to do it, like we said, document it. Policies have to be reviewed annually. I know we said 5 years, but honestly, that's just updating your policy. The review is with your employees. And that review process allows time to consider, is our program effective? Have there been any new laws recently in Arizona? I say recently, it's in the last, gosh, I guess it's been 5 years. We finally made it illegal to be on your cell phone while you're driving. And any accidents or near misses, you've got to review those with your management team and your safety committee if you have one. Any findings or steps taken to mitigate future accidents should be communicated to all drivers within your company. All right, Miranda, go for it. Talk about managing accidents.
All right, so managing accidents when they do occur can help mitigate accident costs. It also helps to understand the exposures and can reduce the potential for future losses. All vehicles should have instructions for what to do when an accident happens. Usually it's in the glove box, and there needs to be specific steps written and available when an accident occurs. So employees need to know what are the first and second phone calls they need to make when an accident happens, what to take photos and videos of, what documentation they need to have at the scene, what to say and what not to say at the scene. This can make a huge difference. So following the correct protocol may allow management and the insurer to respond much more effectively. And by the way, if you don't have resources to assist you with accident investigation, we have materials available at LeBaron & Carroll that can help assist you. I have an accident investigation guide and form. I also have a brochure that you can print out and put in the glove box of your vehicle, so it outlines the steps to take when an accident occurs. I also have a fleet safety program that includes all of that you keep in the vehicle. So just reach out if you need help with this part.
And Miranda, I want to add just a one note to this. As an insurance provider, we're the policy provider. Late reporting of accidents, even when you're not at fault. Let's say you were hit by somebody else. You still want to report that claim to your insurance provider. Because if it gets turned upside down, if it gets ugly, or more to the point, you pay us to handle your claims. Let us do the work. We're really good at it. And there's no reason that any of you should be tied up and talking to somebody else's insurance company. So even if you're not at fault, report the claim to your insurance provider, because that's what we get paid to do, is handle the claims. And the longer you take to report a claim to your insurance provider, the worse it's going to be. And that's just a fact. That's not an opinion. So sorry, I interrupted there, Miranda.
No, great point. Yeah. Anytime there's any kind of an accident or injury, reporting immediately is very important. So vehicle accidents should receive the same investigation process that you would for any other employee injury investigation. It should, our primary focus is determining what is the root cause. Why did this happen? so that we can make sure it doesn't happen again. Like, we need to get to the root of why it happened. And so what you see on this slide is a list of items that you want to include in this investigation. And as said in the prior slide, if you need help in creating this protocol, you don't know how to investigate, I have a guide for you that can walk you through it with all of the documentation. But this needs to be done on every vehicle accident.
Let's look at formal fleet management. Okay. Fleet management, most of you are probably doing a pretty good job. Again, the service folks attending this meeting, you guys really do stay on top of maintenance. But if you have like folks that are just driving a pickup truck going to a job site every day, we may kind of slip up a bit on maintenance, and it can really, really affect you. If you do have an effective fleet maintenance program in place, it really can help reduce costly, unexpected breakdowns and can really assist in avoiding accidents due to faulty equipment. It's crucial to retain, this is documentation again, really crucial to retain accurate maintenance records. If there's even a hint that the cause of an accident was maintenance related, so let's say the brakes were bad, the tires were bad, the lights weren't working, the turn signals were off. If that is the case, and you cannot provide proper documentation that you've been doing maintenance, attorneys will grab that. They can also, if an attorney is going after you, they can make a request your maintenance records as part of discovery. And when you're able to show them, yep, we've been doing the job. We've been doing all of our maintenance. We've been doing pre and post trip vehicle inspections. We've maintained state and local Department of DOT inspection reports. We've got maintenance logs for the vehicle, and we have copies of all the repair work performed on the vehicle. When you have this, and if you get subpoenaed by an attorney, it's fantastic. You just show them a giant logbook of everything you've done. And I want to say one more time, pre and post vehicle inspections, crucial. And I'm not even talking about the big giant pickups or the big giant box trucks or the big giant Mack trucks. I'm talking about pickup trucks. I'm talking about just service vehicles. You got to do the pre and post trip inspections. All right, on this next slide is another video. There's no sound, so you're not missing anything. But this could be an example of either bad maintenance or horrible distracted driving. You'll notice the light we're seeing is a red light. So vehicles are not going through that red light. So the cross traffic has access. So let's watch this video, and I'm going to show you twice. So don't worry if you missed it. Oh, nope. I'm just going to go to the next slide. All right. I'm going to show you again. Keep an eye. That red truck or that red car is just doing their thing, going on, and it's a state highway. You can see the sign. It's State Highway 61, wherever that is. And it's the box truck is clearly going through a red light. So let's see this again. Really quickly, this video really demonstrates why having dash cams is a fantastic thing to have. This person who has this dash cam did nothing wrong. They were sitting there at a light, and they now have full on evidence of who was at fault. And this person who has the dash cam absolutely, like I said, did nothing wrong. And they can actually provide evidence that the box truck was in the wrong and that poor red vehicle did nothing. And they were not even tapping their brake. They full on hit that box truck. So it was a bad incident. It's a really bad incident. All right. So going on, I'm just going to keep flipping through slides, apparently. Miranda, I'm going to turn this over for you for telematics.
All right. So telematics, or GPS, is a term used to refer to vehicle monitoring devices that can provide information to persons that have access to monitor this data. Some common items that are monitored are vehicle location, vehicle speed, hard braking, sudden and hard turns, going beyond predetermined boundaries, So it can be a very effective tool for monitoring several vehicles' locations, especially if it involves locating persons who perform service work where they're all over the place. Great tool. So a GPS vendor will help you set up the alerts that you wish to monitor. They should guide the user on frequency and type of alerts. There are a lot of ways to set up the telematics program, but the absolutely vital steps are designated persons receiving the alerts from poor behaviors. So if you have a GPS system, but there's nobody monitoring it, it's of no good. It's had no value. So you have to have someone that's monitoring the alerts of the drivers. You need a formal method of discussing the results with the drivers and follow-up corrections or disciplinary system. So someone monitoring the alerts, someone needs to discuss the alerts with the drivers when there's a problem, and corrections, disciplinary action. It's the only way this is going to be a useful tool. So you must have all of the elements of an effective fleet management program in place prior to implementing GPS and telematics. So Kathleen has a terrible GPS story that we can learn from.
Yeah, I'm a lot of fun at parties. I have terrible stories to tell people. I'm going to go into an example, and then we're going to show some photographs from another accident where the GPS saved us. So this is what happens, or what can happen, if you're not actively monitoring your GPS and counseling, possibly disciplining drivers for poor behaviors. And almost always, by the way, it's the poor behavior speeding. Just going to go ahead and tell you. So in this situation, our driver was doing 47 and a 45. That's not the problem. They had a green light. It was green. They had witnesses. Other people were sitting at the intersection and saw the green light. Unfortunately, a person on a bicycle did not pay attention to the red light or chose to ignore it. And they went through the intersection, and our driver hit the bicyclist. The bicyclist had a really bad brain injury. We knew we were going to have to defend the driver because without question, it was going to go to court. But we had witnesses, 100% witnesses, and they were all ready to testify. The problem is there was GPS in the vehicle. And that's how we knew he was doing 47 and a 45. Unfortunately, they had put GPS into their vehicles probably 6 months prior. It may have been 6 or 8 months. They had, let's just say 6 to make it even, 6 months of data that this driver was speeding all the time. And I'm not talking 2 miles over the speed limit. I'm talking 10 to 20 miles over the speed limit, not on the interstate, on surface roads, in neighborhoods. This person was speeding all the time. And when a prosecuting attorney found out that there was GPS in the vehicles, they said they have the right in discovery to subpoena all those months of GPS records. So in handing it over, they went speeding. So even though that person was not speeding at that moment, let's go back to a phrase we heard earlier, negligent entrustment. They had documented evidence, tons of documented evidence, that this driver had very, very risky, poor driving behaviors. So initially we had $50,000 in reserves because we knew we were going to have to defend the driver. It's just a fact of life. We marked up once we found out about the GPS ourselves, we put reserves up to $500,000, and we ended up, the claim settled at $503,000. So that's a terrible story when you don't properly use your GPS. Miranda said, why even have it? Like it's just useless if you're not going to use it properly. But let's go into a story that actually demonstrates when your drivers are good, GPS can save us. So in this situation here, you're going to see 2 damaged vehicles. This is a picture of the front end of the company-owned van. Okay, so this is our van. This is our vehicle that had GPS in it. This is the vehicle that we were in a collision with. We T-boned. So what happened here? And look, the roof is off on that one. All right. The at-fault party, meaning the other people, attempted to place blame on our company van, alleging that this van was speeding excessively. Luckily, we had GPS history, and it revealed a very different version of the accident and supported our driver when he claimed to be going the speed limit. In fact, I'm so sorry. I did it again. I keep going way through slides. The telematics and the company van supported that the driver was doing 56 and a 55. Totally cool with that. Additionally, telematics revealed upon further investigation that this driver in this van regularly drove the speed limit. And because they subpoenaed all of those records, it was just like, oh, he's a good driver. He's a good driver. He's a good driver. Because the telematics supported the facts the company vehicle was not speeding, even though there was a fatality, we didn't pay any damages. We still had to defend our driver and our company, but they were looking at $1.5 million. And when you've got a fatality involved, it's likely going to go even higher than that. So as you're going to see on this next slide, there's several ways to implement telematics that can really enhance your fleet safety. So I'm going to get to that here. And Miss Miranda is going to tell you all about it.
Yeah. So,
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. We're not going to talk about telematics anymore. We're just going to talk about what we need to do next. My bad, Miranda.
yeah, we're looking at our whole fleet safety management system now. So now you know better what makes an effective program. So now what? So look at your own program and identify gaps, evaluate missing elements of the program and work at them one at a time. Designate responsible persons. So who's going to be responsible? This is something else cannot be left to chance. You have to have someone that's going to take responsibility for implementing our fleet management program. Who's going to be responsible? You need top level buy-in and support. Who's the decision maker? It's usually the owner, the CEO. Someone has to give their buy-in, give approval, and so that it can be implemented. You need necessary resources. You have Amerisure here, so insurance, and also LeBaron and Carroll. We offer resources, written policies and programs, training, which we will get into last. But you also need to set a timeline for completion. If you don't have a deadline when you're going to implement your fleet management program, it won't happen. You need a timeline. This is how we're going to implement it. By this day, we're going to have our fleet management program in place. And if you don't have one right now, it'd be a really great goal for January 1st. We're rolling this out. So collaborate and make it happen. Successfully roll out to the drivers. So that takes communication. You need a way to communicate with all of your drivers and make it happen. And then monitor your progress. Do a self-audit. Who is responsible for following the fleet safety program? It needs to be at least annually, look at your fleet management program. Is it still working? Do we need to make adjustments to it? And that's how it's going to be successful. So now let's review all the elements that we should consider. I'll turn it back to Kathleen.
Okay, we're almost wrapped up, y'all. So good job staying in there. This is just a reiteration of everything that you need to do. And Miranda, we're going to be sending this out, this webinar out, if so folks want to review it again, or if they want to share it with their team.
Yes.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so just make sure you've got appropriate policies and procedures to all drivers. Make sure, again, the folks that are sitting here shows that there's management commitment in your company. You want to screen and select your qualified drivers and not have the bad drivers be approved to drive even on a job site. You want to have effective ongoing driver training program that's documented. Driver accountability. You got to hold folks accountable. If they're going to act out and driving your vehicle, they are driving your vehicle. You've got to hold them accountable to maintain it properly, maintenance, and also to drive it responsibly. Managing accidents when they occur, because they happen. You need to have your maintenance program documented. I keep saying that, but I mean it. That's one of the biggest failures we have is we don't keep documentation. And then if you can, put telematics in, but use it well. Don't just put it in and ignore it. You just want to make sure if you're going to put telematics or GPS in your vehicles, you're going to maintain it properly. So we've done all this. We've talked about all this, but now I'm going to tell you, Miranda is going to tell you everything that LeBaron and Carroll has. And I just want to back up Miranda here for a second. LeBaron and Carroll is amazing at the resources they provide. It's one of my favorite agencies to work with because I know, one, they have the materials, they have amazing people who help do the training with you, and they actually follow up. When they say they're going to do something, they do it. So I love working with LeBaron and Carroll because, quite frankly, it makes my job super easy. So thanks to LeBaron and Carroll. All right, so Miranda, let's talk about what you have available.
Awesome. So driver safety training is probably one of the most requested trainings that we get because of auto accidents that are continually happening. It's a challenge for a lot of our customers. So why does workplace motor vehicle safety matter? Whenever I teach a class, I ask, who here thinks they're a good driver? Almost everybody raises their hand. But statistics show that's not the case. People aren't great drivers. So we need training so they can be better. Millions of workers drive or ride in a vehicle as part of their jobs, and crashes are the leading cause of work-related deaths in the United States. So no matter how dangerous an industry is, construction, all these different oil and gas, very dangerous industries, the most dangerous part of their job is driving. So all workers are at risk of crashes, whether they drive light or heavy vehicles or whether driving is a main or incidental job duty. So motor vehicle safety is crucial and training is crucial.
Let me know when you want to go to the next slide, Miranda.
Yeah, go ahead and go to the next one. I'm ready. So we need driver safety training. So this includes training on what is your seatbelt policy, what is your alcohol and drug policy, cell phone policy, training on obeying speed limits, lane changes, following stopping distance, vehicle inspection. So your employees, you might say, hey, go do a vehicle inspection. Do they know how? So you do training on how to do a pre and post trip inspection, and you should have a checklist so it's documented. What to do when they need to know the protocols to follow when there is maintenance that needs to be done and how to document it. They need training on defensive driving. If you're having a lot of accidents, but they're not your driver's fault, well, it's still great. Train them on defensive driving so they can prevent accidents. Distracted driving is huge. Training on fatigue, right of way, railroad safety, different driving conditions that they may encounter. So these are things that your driving training needs to include. So go ahead and go to the next slide, Kathleen. So it may be overwhelming, like how in the world do we do our training then? It has to be done, has to be documented. Well, it should be part of your onboarding process when you hire new employees. It should also be done annually. You can give reminders throughout the year in the form of a toolbox talk. It should be done post-accident. So we can give you access to this training online. We can make your safety person an administrator and give you access to all kinds of driving training online in Spanish and English. And we can also come to you and do the training. So if you have a day, we have a training day, we would like to bring LeBaron and Carroll in to do a driving safety training for our employees, we'd be happy to come, and we don't charge for it. So you just say, hey, can you come this day? Seth or myself would be happy to come. Takes about an hour. We go through a driver training with your employees. We'd be happy to do that. Or if you want to do it yourself, I'll give you my training material, PowerPoints, videos, toolbox talks, whatever you need so that you can train your own employees, but it needs to be done. So you need to do some kind of training for them. And I always say something is better than nothing. So start now And if you haven't had any driver training for your employees, your drivers, then pick a day right now. When are you going to do it? And then if you also need a fleet management written program, let me know. Just this last week, I had a client email me. They received notice that one of their drivers had ran a red light. And they asked me, so what do we do now? So you should have a policy, a driver safety policy, so that when there are violations, you get a notice of a violation, these are the steps you take. And one step I always suggest if there's a violation is do training on whatever the violation was. Provide training. Maybe you have a disciplinary action plan in place, which you should. You have a driver violating your policies. You need to have steps that you take instead of turning a blind eye. It could be catastrophic, as we've learned in these experiences. So make sure you have written programs, policies in place. If you need them, you don't have them, you don't know where to start, I have them for you. Colleen can get them for you. Seth, myself, just let us know. We'll share anything we have with you. An anonymous attendee has asked, what information needs to be on the documentation for trainings and safety meetings? Just a signature or more? Very good question. It's very simple. It's very simple. So to document your training, it could be a paper, a hard copy, or a digital copy. It needs to say what the training was, what the training date was, who the trainer was, and then a list of attendees that sign in. You could also have certificates, could be your proof, or an attendance record, or both would be even better. Anything you want to add to that, Kathleen?
Yeah, just to make sure if they're going to sign in, they need to print their name and then do the signature, because folks will come in and put an X as their name. And, you know, we've all seen that. But yeah, that's a great question. And thank you for asking it. Are there any other questions? We can wait for a few minutes if somebody wants to type anything in, or obviously you can contact, I think most of you work with Miranda or Seth. You can send a note to them directly or call them. See, I've made work for you, Miranda. You're so lucky.
Yeah. That sounds great. Yeah, let us know. And also, if you need a sign-in sheet, like you don't want to design one yourself, I have sign-in sheets, blank sign-in sheets. Colleen has them. We can email to you and you can adopt it as your own. And so you have sign-in sheets for your own trainings. Also, toolbox talks.
Yep.
If you're any kind of training, make sure your employees you have an attendance record of those who are attending those toolbox talks. That training counts. That training totally counts. So make sure you're training on the hazards of the job, especially driving.
So one last thing I'll add to this question. If your employee can't tell you what you said, or not reiterate, not go in like, oh, they hear the training once and they can go and teach the class. But if they can't get the ideas back, then the training didn't happen. I actually, when I was a manager, safety manager, I had an OSHA inspection, and it was on this really dumb thing. And I said, look, here's all the documentation. Here's the signatures. I clearly did training on this one little small thing. And the person said, the OSHA inspector said, if that person can't tell me this simple thing, then you didn't do the training. And I'm like, okay, that's fair. I think there's another question, Miranda.
I think it's just Colleen. She says,
Oh, my bad.
No, when we're done, she'll close everything out. And Colleen will be sending out, I believe a link to the webinar and notes from their PowerPoint, so you can review and share with your team. And we're here to support you. So let us know if you need help with training, policies, anything like that.
I am noticing that we've got more participants right now, and I am concerned that folks are joining in now, believing that we're just starting the webinar now. For those of you who are just coming in, who we may have mistakenly said this time, it was actually an hour ago. To reiterate, Colleen is going to send out all of you who are participants a link to the webinar, so you haven't missed anything. We're going to send it right back to you. You can actually fast forward the parts that you don't want to listen to. So anyway, I'm just noticing we've got about 6 more attendees than we did about 10 minutes ago.
Yeah. Colleen will send out a link to this webinar since it's recorded, so you don't miss it.
All right,
All right.
Colleen, is there anything else we need to add?
No, that was it. I was just going to say thank you to you both, Kathleen and Miranda, for doing this wonderful presentation and teaching us so much and sharing crazy stories. And they've already said, but I'm going to send out an email to all the attendees. Your emails are recorded for me anyway, so I'll send out the webinar once it's uploaded so you can watch, fast forward, pause, whatever you want through the webinar recording. I can include the slides, and I think you guys both mentioned like a glove box accident list, and then also injury reporting, like anything that they mentioned, vehicle checklist. I'm going to send that out to you as well. So don't worry.
All right.
Great.
Well,
Thank you, Colleen.
Yeah, thanks, Colleen. And thank you to all of you who are attending. We are so grateful that you've taken the time and done your commitment. And I'm seeing somebody's hand wave. I'm going to wave back. So I'm done. Miranda, you want to finish up?
That's it. Everybody have a great day. Be safe out there. And
All right.
we look forward to having you again.